In 1898, Cuba gained independence from Spain after 4 centuries of colonial rule. But true autonomy? That was still out of reach. Instead, the United States stepped in, claiming temporary control to help the island establish itself. For 4 years, a U.S.-appointed military government ruled Cuba, shaping its future in ways that are still felt today. But was this rule truly benevolent, or something else? The first man in charge was General John R. Brooke, a veteran of the American Civil War. His top priority? Education. At the time, Cuba had only about 300 public schools, and literacy rates were shockingly low. But Brooke's administration faced criticism for other decisions. His attempt to ban gambling and restrict entertainment angered business owners, and some of his policies revealed a lack of understanding of Cuba's economy. For example, he proposed banning machetes, without realizing that they were essential for harvesting Cuba's most important crop, sugarcane. Enter Leonard Wood. A decorated military figure and close friend of Theodore Roosevelt, Wood had gained fame leading the Rough Riders in the Spanish-American War. Roosevelt, now a rising political star, personally lobbied for Wood to replace Brooke. By December 1899, Leonard Wood took command as Cuba's new military governor, bringing with him an ambitious vision. Unlike his predecessor, Wood implemented sweeping reforms. His administration focused on 3 key areas: education, infrastructure, and law. Wood expanded Cuba's public school system, increasing the number of schools from 300 to nearly 3,000. Education was made mandatory for children ages 6 to 14, and teachers were required to submit regular reports to ensure progress. He also sought to reform Cuba's legal system, purging corrupt officials and building new courthouses. But there was a problem. Cuba had no jury system, and many judges feared retaliation for their rulings. As a result, cases were often dismissed, and real justice remained elusive. Cuba, devastated by war, lacked proper infrastructure. Wood's administration invested heavily in rebuilding roads, railways, and public sanitation. Death rates in Havana, which were 2 to 3 times higher than cities of comparable size, dropped significantly due to better hygiene and cleaner water supplies. But there was one issue Wood could not control: the Cuban people's desire for true self-rule. The U.S. planned to withdraw, but not without shaping the country's political future. Wood implemented strict voting requirements. Only literate men over 21 who owned property or had fought in the war against Spain could vote. This effectively excluded 2/3 of the population. Even with these restrictions, the election did not go as Wood had hoped. Many of the officials elected did not align with U.S. interests. Despite the progress his administration brought, Cuba's resentment toward American influence grew. The U.S. occupation of Cuba was short-lived, but its consequences lasted for generations. Future Cuban leaders, often seen as puppets of U.S. interests, fueled nationalist resentment. This, in part, led to the Cuban Revolution and Fidel Castro's rise to power. For many Cubans, Castro's government, despite its flaws, represented something the U.S. military government never could: true independence. The decades-long dictatorship of Fidel Castro is one of many examples of the negative consequences of excessive interventionism. What if the U.S. had chosen cooperation over control? What if Cuba had been allowed to develop its own government with guidance instead of military rule? Could a more equal partnership have prevented the later hostility between the two nations? While history cannot be rewritten, it does teach us a crucial lesson. Imposing control, even under the guise of benevolence, often creates more problems than it solves. Cuba's story is still being written, and perhaps one day, the two nations will find the cooperation that history once denied them. But this isn't just a matter for governments. It's up to us as well. We must support all efforts toward open dialogue, economic partnerships, and cultural exchange that foster mutual understanding. By advocating for policies that prioritize cooperation over conflict, we can help shape a future where the people of Cuba and the United States are connected not by past grievances, but by shared prosperity and respect. The path forward is in our hands. Let's work toward a better future together.